It is 18 minutes after the hour on Transcendent Tuesday, and that means none other than Dr. Don Clark coming to us from Garden Valley, Texas. Don is a biochemist, scads, oodles of experience in pharmaceuticals, and also the executive director. No, he's not. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong guy. Who are you again? Don?
Oh,
You bring your resume?
He's the vice chair.
Because
I'm
let me
the
see your
vice chair
name.
of creation.
Name tag. Give me your name tag.
And many other things. You can call me anything you'd like.
Well, we're gonna test new waters with you, Don, this morning. We're not talking about biochemistry. We're not talking about the history of expressed in Genesis or the Bible, but this is about the stuff we're standing in every day. The stuff that's floating through the ether, that's surrounding us, that's penetrating us like a million bullets every instant. It is a combination of stuff. I'm not sure that anybody's really been able to analyze this. If you think back to the early 20th century, radio had just been invented. Now, there was radiation from the sun and other natural sources, but then we added radio frequency radiation. And as the years went by, hundreds, then thousands, maybe tens of thousands of transmitting towers for various purposes. Now it's microwave towers, it's cell phones, it's internet, it's all that stuff floating through the air. And the question is it harmful to us? I don't know.
Nah.
Come on. I mean, it
Nah.
can't be, right? It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And we're still here. It's
Well, yeah. What
everywhere.
about the increase in cancer? What about depression and all the new drugs and stuff that we're seeing doctors for? How do we know
and
that
then-
isn't RF radiation and other stuff that again is floating around in the ether for us?
Well, that is a very, very good question because some of it could very well be due to the radiation that we are being exposed to. I mean, we know, for example, we figured out, science, well, the medical community said, look, we can see inside the body using x-rays. And then we figured out that, oops, x-rays cause cancer. So maybe we better turn down the dial on x-rays, and then we increase the sensitivity of our detectors. So now you go get an x-ray and, it's all digital for one thing. It's
They
not
still put a
done
suit
with
of lead
film.
on you before they take pictures, though.
And they put a lead blanket on you, except the spot that they want to look at, and you kind of scratch your head and said, "Is this dangerous? I mean,
Yeah.
is this really dangerous?"
Every time I get an X-ray, the technician leaves the room.
Well, yeah, they go
He
hide
leaves,
around the corner.
leaves the
Where you
room.
going?
He or she
What?
leaves the room, goes
Yeah,
into another compartment that
do you
is
do?
lead lined.
Yeah,
Other than
where
that,
you
it's
going?
perfectly safe. So, that gives us a clue that perhaps X-rays aren't as safe
Don,
as
do
we
you remember
once
the old shoe
thought.
stores in the I don't know if you're that old, but in the 50s there was a gadget in where you buy shoes in shoe stores. You could stand on and see your feet, your bones in your feet. You could look down into this thing, and it was dangerous. And it wasn't long before they discovered that and stopped doing that. But how much stuff gets released into the public? I mean, what is ultrasound? If we have other ways of scanning you now, all kinds of different apparatus. We don't, and until we die, they don't know if it's dangerous.
Yes, and there's not a whole lot of research in this area. There is some, because I did find one article. I just did, a search, and then it came up with, well, we should study this a little more. We should study this area a little more, and we should study maybe this area we should study. But talking about x-rays, when you go in for a CT scan, your whole body is being x-rayed. It is an X-ray machine, 3D X-ray machine. So we've gotten very, very sophisticated. Now it's not giving you the levels of X-ray that the foot machine did, or the old X-rays, did. So you're getting much less exposure.
What is the machine that TSA uses when they say put your stick them up, put your hands up there, and just and then you get scanned before you can go through security.
That's a good question. It's a scanner of some type.
Some
Now,
kind,
it's
yeah.
probably electromagnetic. All of this is electromagnetic frequency or radiation. And so, we've got these other medical machines called magnetic resonance imaging, MRIs
Mhm.
for short. And when I was actually doing a postdoc, that technology was in the research phase, and it was called zoommatography. And they changed it to magnetic resonance imaging, which is more descriptive of zoommatography because Dr. Zook, I guess they didn't want to make him popular, so they changed it to really what it was. But it was a high-powered magnet, which we were doing in our lab, for example. We had this high-powered NMR machine, magnetic resonance machine, where we could look at molecules and look at big molecules and see what different conditions did to the molecules, and based on the imaging that we got out of it, we could get some information. Well, this technique actually happened to image water beginning, initially in your body, and could give you a picture of what was going on inside your body without using ionizing radiation, which X-rays are ionizing radiation. In other words, the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation is that ionizing radiation is radiation that when it strikes an atom, an electron comes off, or can come off. Doesn't necessarily have to come off, but it can come off. And so X-rays do that. Gamma rays do that, and certain, radiation of certain energies can kick that electron off of the atom, thereby ionizing the atom,
So you wind
ionizing the
up with a
molecule,
positive charge then, right?
and causing a positive charge, and those electrons will go bouncing around inside your cells, destroying cells. And they found out very quickly that, oh, this is very destructive to DNA. And so if you start irradiating your DNA, you might get cancer. And that's indeed what was happening to these patients that were being x-rayed too often. They started developing various types of cancer. Well, along comes this non-ionizing, and we're saying, oh, this is much better. It's not doing that. But we use non-ionizing radiation every day if you use a microwave oven, because microwave ovens are non-ionizing radiation. It's electromagnetic radiation. And it essentially is enough energy to wiggle the water molecules in the food that you're heating up.
And yet they
And so
put
that's
some
how it
kind of
heats
some
it up.
sort of a protective screen in the door to the microwave, right? There's something to shield you from that
It
radiation.
does, but, and there's gaskets around it, and it's supposed to protect you from the radiation that is being zapped around on the inside, because it is fairly high radiation. If you ever look inside one of these, you can use the transformer and the big magnet. It's called the magnetron, for example, inside these things
So it's
that
used
actually
in
generates
radar, yeah.
that generates the radiation. And you can make spot welding machines out of them by taking out half of the coil and
Which
putting in
begs the
a
question.
big coil, and you can, create. And there's projects on the internet where you can just, hey, don't throw away your microwave oven.
Yeah.
You can make a spot welder out of it, and a lot of people have.
If you
And
have
so
spots you need to weld, but what about the food you've welded? It
Well,
it
the food, what it's doing, what it's designed to do is wiggle is to shake
vibrates.
the
Everything's a
water
vibration,
molecules
isn't it? Yeah.
in the food, which
Mm.
is the same thing that you do when you put a pot of water on the stove and you heat it up. The water molecules get moving very fast, and some of them escape the water and produce steam. But you put stuff in it, you basically cook whatever you're putting in the water, whether it's spaghetti or whatever it happens to be. Well, the microwave does it, but it does it from the inside. And so, just imagine if you stuck your hand in there while the radiation was going on, you're
Right, well, think about
gonna
that.
cook your hand,
Yeah.
because the water gets very hot. Now, that's an extreme example, but we've got this radiation all over now. We've got it in our cell phones, and initial studies on cell phones, they did a study, actually, not these people, but they studies have been done on to try to see, is there any correlation between cell phone use and people who are actually getting any type of cancers whatsoever. And lo and behold, it looked like that gliomas were being formed in people's brains. That is, brain cancer was being formed in those people that had the most cell phone use. And so they were holding their cell phones up to their ears. And it looked like the gliomas were being formed in the area of the brain close to your ear, on that side of the ear where you use your phone the most. Well,
Sure. Now you tell me.
yeah, I
Yeah.
tell you this now because it's too late for you, David.
I was gonna say,
And
I've been using it for 10 years. Now you tell me.
and
Oh, good.
how
Okay.
like life that is. That 10 years later, there's just we're talking about an article. The article that spawned this discussion comes from Blaze Media, and it starts talking about noise pollution and what effect that might have on animals and plants and people. And you combine that with all the other stuff, and they talk about now, years later, there's a mountain of follow-up studies doing what science is supposed to do, systematically explore and clarify areas of life where there seems to be nettlesome problems, the solution to which might just make life better, more livable for everyone. But then it says, no, the unpredictable ways that combined human alterations alter the environment are not studied.
Yeah,
It's just the conclusion is
that's
it's
not 100% true because there are laboratories that are studying this. It's just not being promoted
no.
very well because people would say, "Hey, maybe I shouldn't be using my cell phone, or I should put earbuds in my ears and use my cell phone through the earbuds," which is actually a better way of doing it. Now, the only problem with the earbud is that it's Bluetooth connected. I mean, if you use the wired connected earbuds, you're better off actually
Mhm.
than
Really?
the Bluetooth connected earbuds because guess what? Bluetooth is EMF. It's electromagnetic radiation. Now, it is a lower electromagnetic radiation than the cell phone is putting out. It's a lower energy, but it's still lower. It's still electromagnetic radiation. And now there's a new Bluetooth out, which those of us who are now of that age to need hearing aids is LE Bluetooth, which means low energy Bluetooth, which connects to your phone and supposedly is even lower energy. So the theme that seems to be recurring is let's try to get the energy lower, but at the same time, we are going in the opposite direction because we are sending more power through power lines. So just think about it. Where does the electromagnetic radiation come from? Well, think of the term electromagnetic. So anything that has a wire and the wire is carrying current, that is electricity, you are generating a magnetic field. And so you've got maybe you have wires running through your home. And maybe, some of those wires have high currents going through them, like going to your washing machine and your dryer in particular, and to that microwave oven, and to the electric stove that's in your house. You are generating electromagnetic radiation through those wires.
Now,
Now,
I have heard that farm animals who graze beneath power lines are at risk. That you
the
can have a lot of damage to cattle, to sheep, to any other living critter that spends time underneath those power lines. Is that true?
Yes, that is apparently the case, and a matter of fact, those cows that spend a lot of time there produce less milk. So it
Hmm.
is affecting them in
Hmm.
some way. Exactly how, I don't think we know. But we are increasingly being bombarded by more and more radiation. Um, we even with your cell phone, for example, we went from something called LE, and then we've upped that. Now, we've got 5G, and 6G is coming, and 7G is probably not far
Are there
behind.
no limit to the G's we can get? I don't even know what
Really?
that means.
It basically is what's happening in the telecommunication world is that we are trying to send more data through the cellular signal. So the cellular signal is a radio signal. We think of our old time radios where you had to dial in for the station. Now everything is digital. But back when we were younger, you actually physically had to dial in using a
Yeah, twist
variable
the dial, yeah.
capacitor in order to dial the frequency in that you wanted to listen to. And since I'm talking to some, radio buffs here on the radio program, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sure.
But okay, so your cell phone started off with a lower frequency radio signal, but you can only pass so much information through low frequencies. So if you want more data getting to the phone, in other words, we're not using the phone as a phone anymore. I mean, yes, okay, some people are still talking on the phone. Can you imagine people talking on a phone? But most people
I
are getting
I haven't
emails.
I haven't made a call in weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Most people are texting. Most people are searching things on their internet, on their phone through the internet, and looking at videos through the internet. And that's demanding more and more data throughput to your cell phone, which means you've got to increase the frequency of the transmitted, the carrier frequency for that information. So every time, a new system comes out, it offers more and more data throughput, but it's at a higher and higher frequency. Well, eventually you can get up to frequencies that might be ionizing. Now you really got a problem, because a higher frequency carries more energy. It not only carries more data, but it carries more energy. And
A while ago, I was talking to David this morning on the air about an old radio program I used to run on a radio station in Minnesota where we both worked. And I presented that they were old radio shows and I explained the science behind the ability to do this. I had a sound effect that would raise a huge antenna over the station, go up, and then hear some super heterodyne noise, tuning into it, and it would lock onto an old radio show. The theory being that anything that is ever broadcast stays around forever. It gets weaker and weaker, but it never disappears. So we could lock onto an old broadcast, and you could hear Fred Allen or Lum and Abner or the Gangbuster program or Suspense. They would never know what show was going to get, but it would lock onto something that would be very entertaining because the energy is still there. Now,
Which is an interesting question. Do
yeah,
those waves go away eventually?
Well,
well,
they get absorbed. I mean, they get absorbed by something. I mean,
Hmm.
you have a transmitter and you have a receiver. Well, the receiver is absorbing some of the energy out of the atmosphere in order to convert it back into
I mean, if
a
everybody
electrical
tunes in, the
signal
signal will
again.
be used up. You could have too many listeners.
You could have too many listeners, yeah, as the
No.
population increases. So, we need more population in order to
Well,
absorb this
fortunately,
energy.
there's an alternate technology, and I understand that if you had a certain kind of filling in your tooth and you listen closely, you could hear the Jack Benny Show.
Yeah,
I
that was years ago.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I did a mystery shop last week on something called meta glasses, and it's
Meta glasses.
glasses, and they Ray-Ban is makes the most popular one, but they're dark, heavy frames with large, thick temples, and there are speakers in the temples, and
Uh-huh.
you can take pictures through a small camera in the little eyepiece. Now they haven't gotten to the point yet where you can actually see a computer screen on your lenses, but that's around the corner.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
almost there. I mean, it's gotten to the point now where those little teeny tiny microwaves are just kind of nestling up against the side of your noggin.
And there are people trying to and are, let's just get connected. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we wasting our time for? I mean, let's just connect directly to the brain and get that information directly.
Can
You
we do
just sit
that?
down and you
Can
plug in
can
and
we can we do that?
um,
Is that possible?
there is definitely research going on in that field, and I think Elon Musk is even involved with some of this. But in the meantime, we are being bombarded not only through radio waves and microwaves and cellular signals, but we haven't talked about Wi-Fi. You know, Wi-Fi frequencies are increasing as well because of the same reason. The higher the frequency, the more data that it can carry. So, we want to have Wi-Fi in our houses. It used to be that you had to plug in to the Ethernet via a physical plug from your computer. And okay, if you're sitting at a desk, that worked fine, but I want to sit on my couch and watch television and work on my computer at the same time. Well, I don't have a plug around to do that. Oh, along came Wi-Fi, and everybody, jumped on Wi-Fi because it was very convenient. And you can take your computer anywhere, and you didn't have to worry about plugging in, but you had more radio frequency being generated from your computer and from a device called the router, and you needed a router. Well, now, every so often, you've got to upgrade your router because you need more data. And the old router isn't pumping out enough data, so you need a new router, and the new router is operating at a higher frequency, higher energy than the old router
The
is.
day is not far off when we'll all be taking malware pills.
Yeah, we'll be taking something. I mean, the other alternative
Avoid being reprogrammed
Can
when
the
you
other
least expect it.
alternative is we can, um, uh, go into a Faraday cage, and that will block the electromagnetic radiation. So, for an hour a day, you get into your Faraday cage, you get grounded, and maybe even, turn it into a sauna, for example. Those of you who live further north are, not experiencing the great sauna temperatures we have in Texas. You can get into your Faraday cage, have an infrared sauna, get a sauna treatment, get free from the infrared radiation for a period of time and rejuvenate your body. I
Mhm.
mean, this is a fantastic idea for a new medical device.
Wouldn't wouldn't the solution for this, I mean, the assumption we can kind of make is that all these microwaves and radio waves and RF frequencies and all this stuff bombarding our bodies is harmful. What if we did plug in to get the information? Would that would avoid getting radiation from the outside? We'd plug it directly into us. Is
Yes.
that a good thing?
Is that a good thing? I don't know.
We'd all be USB individuals then, you know?
Well, is it a good thing? It's if you get directly plugged in, can you be
Yeah.
directly controlled by a master computer?
Are you suggesting
Some
was something like the Matrix? We
Yeah,
all plug
exactly.
in.
I
We
mean,
all plug in, and
we all plug in and we just experience things
Mhm.
that, I wish I was on the Eiffel Tower, and whoop,
Mhm.
Don,
Mhm.
Don,
you're
let's
on the Eiffel
let's get
Tower.
down to basics here, and that is life itself. I used to, in a couple of lectures I presented to church people, I talked about the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the full range of vibrations that God has set to work in the universe. And if you could represent that as a piece of movie film that stretched from Seattle to San Diego, 2,000 miles or thereabout, that the range of the electromagnetic spectrum would only be about 1 inch, and it would be somewhere in Northern California. In other words, life exists as we know it, that we can detect in a very small range of the vibrations that God uses for whatever God uses it for. Communication, spirit, what it's all, and you've talked about this before, it's everything boils down to vibrations. Is that true?
This physical world, certainly, that is definitely true. Because, as first part of Genesis, after God creates this space time that we are living in, he says, "Let there be light." And while that is a metaphor, we kind of think, well, okay, is God really speaking? I believe God was speaking and actually causing the vibrations in this space time that we live in order to create this energy carrying thing we call a photon, uh, create, light, and then you make everything from light particles and you have them spinning around each other, and you make quarks, and the quarks make protons and neutrons, and then you have electrons, which a little bit different, but there are similar characteristics. And now you got the atom, and once you have the atom, you got the building blocks for the physical world, and now you got the physical world. And so you, um, I think the more we are learning about this physical world we live in, the more we understand that there's really not much there to the physical world. I mean, the desk feels solid, but it's just electrons repulsing, other electrons. And if you could get small enough, you could go pass right through it, like with
Mm.
X-rays, for example, and see that, nah, there's not much there, and there's a lot of space between the protons and the nucleus, for example, of an atom, and where that electron is way out in space. If a proton was the size of a baseball, and then the electron would be, a football field away from the proton, and you say, man, that's a lot of space. So what's most of the stuff that we see around us is void, and it's when it boils down to it, it's just a vibration. But the interesting thing is it's the very voice of God that created everything that our physical eyes, bodies, mind experiences. It was created by the very voice of God.
So it's possible for Jesus to come into a locked room through the wall and greet his disciples.
It is. And then for Thomas, for Jesus to say, okay, doubting Thomas, if you don't believe, then stick your finger in my wound here. And
Thomas was flummoxed. He was.
He was.
Yeah.
Yes. He finally said, my Lord and my God. So he realized that he was real.
Well, and so in a way, with all this technology, all the computers, all the high energy stuff and the vibrations and the radiation and all are helping us to understand how God works. Or it can trick you entirely as well and be in the wrong hands. So I guess beware, be informed, but be faithful. Trust God, because he put it all together. Then he'll get us out of this.
At some point in time. Yes.
But will he give me glasses for Christmas?
Those special glasses.
I mean, I'd like a pair of meta glasses for Christmas.
Well, good. I don't know. You'll have to talk to Sam about that.
Okay.
And again, the vice chair at Creation Moments, creationmoments.com is their website. It's a ministry that's been around for about 60 years now. They have a radio program you may have heard elsewhere called Creation Moments. It's about the biblical story of creation and all the evidence that exists around us that says there is a God, there is a designer, there is a creator, and he loves us. And he's thoroughly involved with us every second of every day. You might visit the website and see what they have to offer for you. Creationmoments.com is the website. Don, we appreciate you too. Thank you for joining us and scaring the bejeebers out of us.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Anytime that we need a little discussion about, science and the world around us.
We'll see you next week.
What we've created. Oh, no.
Yes. So long, folks.